Hey podcast fam, Eric here, and if you're an affiliate marketer or looking to monetize your online presence, you need to know about shareasale.com. ShareASale is not just an affiliate network, it's your gateway to a world of opportunities. With thousands of high-paying affiliate programs across various niches, ShareASale connects you with top brands ready to collaborate with content creators like you. Imagine earning commissions for simply sharing products you love. Whether you're into fashion, tech, or lifestyle, ShareASale has got a partnership waiting for you. Ready to turn your passion into profits? Head over to krmpods.com/ShareASale and sign up today. It's free, it's easy, and it's your ticket to unlocking a new revenue stream. Hey, Fox City's Murder and Mayhem listeners, we are back, and this is just a little announcement to let you know that this episode, we actually recorded it for the Milwaukee Mafia Patreon. But after recording it, we realized that this would be a great episode for Fox City's Murder and Mayhem. So we just want to give you the heads up that this is going to sound like a Milwaukee Mafia episode, but the content within it is very relevant to any Fox City's Murder and Mayhem listener. So, and also if you are a Patreon member on the Milwaukee Mafia podcast, you can skip this podcast because you probably already heard it in the Patreon. So... anything else you want to add, Gavin? Or
yes, there is no murder or mayhem.
Yes, there is not murder and mayhem at all. There's a little Al Capone talk.
Yeah, there's no murder or mayhem, but because Kakana came up, and we love referencing Kakana whenever possible on this podcast, we're going to throw it on this
And
feed.
it is a very local place that, you know, everybody in our area should know this story, and where else are you going to hear it than here? So...
yep, very good.
So we'll take the episode away. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
You're listening to Fox City's Murder and Mayhem, your bi-weekly dose of true crime history in a small rural community of Wisconsin.
Hey, Milwaukee Mafia Patreon members, we're back with another episode. I'm Eric.
I'm Gavin.
And Gavin, are we going on a Capone hunt?
We are going on a Capone hunt. There's not going to be a lot of Capone in it, I'll tell you right up front. But yes, we are.
Cool. So we're headed to Two Rivers, I believe. Is that? Well, I guess
you're
it's
going in the
Maribel.
right direction.
It's actually in Maribel.
It's in Maribel, and I guess even that it's technically in Cooperstown. I guess technically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never heard of it. That's probably the only thing in Cooperstown.
Well, yeah. So I had always assumed that the Maribel Caves were in Maribel, but apparently because they're outside of the city limits of Maribel, they're technically in Cooperstown. I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. So those who don't know about the Maribel Caves, as Eric said, are kind of by Two Rivers. They're near Two Rivers, Manitowoc. They're a little bit south of Green Bay. Not a great way to really describe that. They're by Denmark, if somebody knows where Denmark is.
I'm not really... Are they right off the exit, though, of 10 in 43?
I don't think so.
I thought they were.
They might be near it, but like there's not like a... They're off of 141. Okay. So they're off of like an offshoot of 41.
Okay.
But yeah... They're north of Whitelaw. If people know where that is, I mean, it's hard to explain where they are because they're surrounded by like little towns you would never go to. I know the towns because I live in Northeast Wisconsin, but
yeah. And if anybody is in the area and has never been to the Maribel Caves, it's worth a check out.
Absolutely, no,
100%. They are cool.
Yeah,
especially if I don't know, Gavin. Have you ever been into the caves?
Not really. Just a few feet, not really into them.
Yeah, I see. And I went there one time, and there was actually one of the excavator guys or whatever was there, and he was taking people on tours of
that's
the
cool.
Inside of the cave. And wow, you want to talk about having your mind blown? Because they are actually very large caves.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, we're going to talk about that, so that's cool. That is cool. All right, so we're going to talk about the Maribel Caves, and yes, this episode exists because it's a Capone hunt. There are stories of Capone. There are stories of John Dillinger. There are stories of hauntings. There's all the stuff you get whenever you have an interesting property. The Maribel Caves Hotel Very interesting property. Now it's rubble. It went through a fire and a tornado, but you can still see it because it was made out of stone. So it's fascinating. Even as ruins, it still looks cool.
Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, it's right next to the caves, but it's actually private property.
Correct.
And so you can't like walk up and touch it or anything because it's all fenced.
That is 100% correct. Yes, the hotel is private property. So I'm sure people violate it all the time, but you're not supposed to go there. Yes. The land containing the Maribel Caves, we can trace that all the way back to 1837. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do the whole thing. But it was originally owned by Henry Baird, who was the first lawyer in Wisconsin. He's kind of a big deal, but I think he was just buying up property for the sake of buying up property. For all I know, he was never even there. He lived in Green Bay. I don't know if he was ever really there. I don't know if he knew there were caves there, but he was the first owner. While he was the owner, they found medicinal spring water on the property, but it was largely ignored. People didn't really think much of it. They're like, oh, that's neat. There's springs on it. And that wasn't even all that uncommon. You can find this. Nobody really talks about springs anymore, but it used to be that towns would really kind of celebrate that they had a spring, and people could come and they'd be like, oh, you've got the really good water. Keeping in mind that in the 1800s, we didn't have the full water purification systems that cities have now. So when you're getting like the really good water that you don't have to take home and boil, you get pretty excited about that.
And what is a spring? Is it where the water?
It comes like out of a rock.
It comes out of a rock?
Yeah, like it'll come trickling out of the side of like rocks. And so like the rocks
purify
it somehow.
Okay.
I don't know the chemistry behind it, but by doing that instead of just flowing in a river, apparently it's cleaner water. Mm-hmm. In 1872, the land goes to Judge Henry Eldrick. He also doesn't really seem to do much with the property either. And then finally in 1892, the first of the caves was discovered on the property. The first real cave was discovered there. And then it became land that people wanted. So the judge then sold it to a man named Charles Steinbrecher. So the Steinbrecher family is kind of the family that kicked off what we know as the Maribel Caves and Hotel. Charles, relative of his name Walter, and some other people said, hey, you know what would be really great if we built like a health spa. There's like health spas in Europe and people love them. People can come, they can stay at the hotel, we can give them delicious clean water. And they will like, because again, like this is 1892. Clean water is a big deal. Mm-hmm. So they do that. So to invest in it, they go to Walter's brother, Francis Steinbrecher, and here, you got a drink? You don't have a drink with you today.
No, I don't have a drink.
I want to take a drink.
Okay.
Oh, that's delicious. So Father Steinbrecher was the priest in Kaukauna.
Oh, of course he was.
He was, of course. And through Father Steinbrecher, they purchased the land, and Steinbrecher went to the men in his parish, and they said, hey, you guys, a lot of you are stonemasons. Have I got a job for you? And they said, really? So he got 30 men from Kaukauna to come on out to Maribel and build the hotel from local limestone. It took them 4 months to build.
I'm so glad to know that hotel was built by people from Kaukauna.
I am too. You know? And I didn't know that a week ago.
Yeah.
So
you're welcome for making you do this episode.
Yes. I was pretty excited when I was like, what? The priest and the what? So, yeah, no idea. Under the Steinbrecher family's ownership, the hotel became a spotlight destination. Travelers from around the area would go there to enjoy the spa, drink delicious water. There were beautiful murals that were in the front lobby. Up to 200 guests could be there at any time in the elegant dining room and the spacious property. The 2 upper floors had 42 guest rooms, which doesn't sound large, but it was probably pretty big for its time. It was also a popular place for religious retreats. It went through various managers, even though the Steinbrecher family owned it. Apparently went through multiple people managing it. I'm not going to really go through that. Mm-hmm. Then in 1905, the Maribel Mineral Springs Company was incorporated. And this was a company specifically designed to take the mineral water, bottle it, and ship it around as a commercial enterprise. And again, it's a Kaukauna company, believe it or not.
Nice.
Heading it up is John Brill, a man from Kaukauna, and he is joined by J.H. Camps of Appleton, G.T. Moskies, I'm probably saying that wrong, of Appleton, and Mrs. Charles Steinbrecher of Maribel, one of the Steinbrechers, of course. Being a part owner, of course, makes sense. They showed up with $75,000 in stock, which is a significant amount of money in those days. The water from the spring was bottled and shipped all around the Midwest, Milwaukee, Chicago, Minneapolis, all over the place. They told the press the water has been shipped out to some extent, but on a small scale, as there was no railroad facility. The springs are situated near the Maribel Summer Resort, halfway between Green Bay and Manitowoc. A large hotel owned by the company is a short distance from the springs. The Chicago Northwestern Road is now building here, and the shipping difficulty has been overcome. So, again, we got to keep this in mind. This is 1905 when they're bottling the spring water. Cars aren't really a thing yet. Mm-hmm. So unless you want to load up a wagon and drive it around, like, you're not selling this water. But the train is now coming through town, so now you can get it wherever you want it to go.
Okay.
So this like elevates Maribel from being this little local hangout to being like a Midwest, known place. They get big enough that they create a branch office of the Mineral Springs Company in Milwaukee, so they can send it down to Milwaukee, and then from Milwaukee they can handle it there.
They can disperse it to wherever it's got to go.
The Milwaukee manager of the Mineral Springs Company is a man named Andrew Essling from Kaukauna.
I was just going to say, and he's going to be from Kaukauna.
He's from Kaukauna, but he moved to Milwaukee to be the branch manager there. The company's successful. It expands from $75,000 in stock to $100,000 in stock, and they enlarge their bottling plant. More managers come and go. Then I don't know what happens, why this happens, but in December 1923, Father Steinbrecher takes out a mortgage on the cave property from First National Bank of Appleton. I'm not sure why he's taking out a mortgage. I don't know why, if there's like some kind of financial difficulties or something, if they don't have it paid off or what the deal is. But he takes out a mortgage on the property. At this point, they own not only the hotel, but the whole caves as well. The caves are all privately owned here, along with the hotel. He takes out that mortgage in 1923. In 1925, tourism to the caves just falls off. It just drops. It's really kind of weird because the newspaper speculates that the reason that tourism drops off is because now in the mid-1920s, cars are everywhere. Now people, not everybody has a car, but a lot of people have a car by the 20s. And they say, well, now Green Bay and Manitowoc residents don't have to go to Maribel anymore. They can go wherever they want because they can drive. Which, that to me is like weird. I don't know. I feel like the opposite would happen. That you'd be like, well, yeah, Green Bay and Manitowoc people can go other places.
But why wouldn't somebody from Kaukauna now want to go to the Maribel Caves?
Yeah, why aren't you getting people from Oshkosh and Milwaukee driving to the caves? Yeah. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. It seems like the automobile could get more people in. But I don't know. Another article did point out that Highway 141 was moved. They redid it. They made it stone. It had previously been, I guess, dirt. They made it to stone, and in redoing it, it was now, quote, several rods away from the hotel. I'm not sure exactly what a rod is. I could have looked it up and done the math, but I didn't. And so apparently it used to be the road kind of ran right in front of the hotel, and now it didn't. And
that one I can see hurting it big time.
Yeah. And that, I would say, is probably consistent because if you've driven past it, like now in the modern times, you're close enough that you can see the hotel, but the road doesn't really go up to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that's kind of what they're talking about, in that before you could probably just drive right up, pull off, and you were there. Now you'd have to like find the exit and other stuff, which,
right.
you know, I don't know how big of a deal that is, but it might change whether you stop or not. Father Steinbrecher died in September 1927. The property went to his mother, and then the mood surrounding the health spa apparently changed. Now, I don't know. This is a lot of speculation. In 1988, so keep in mind, this is 60 years after this.
Okay.
A man from the local historical society wrote an article saying, quote, "The hotel experienced a radical change in clientele, which included moonshiners, prostitutes, and reportedly John Dillinger and Al Capone."
Okay.
So I looked really, really hard. And if somebody else can find something, please send it to me. I'm happy to be wrong. I'm happy to be corrected. I could not find any reference to John Dillinger or Al Capone earlier than 1988.
Okay.
Which means they weren't even mentioned as being connected to this place until at least 50, if not 60 years later.
And it almost sounds like that guy could have just written an article and said that it became a place where criminals went, like Al Capone and John Dillinger. He might not have even meant that they specifically were there.
Yeah.
I would
so
say.
I'd love to see an earlier source, but of the places that have had alleged Al Capone connections, this one seems really weak because we don't have, to my knowledge, we don't have anybody actually saying they saw him there, which normally we at least have that. We have something like, oh, yeah, my mother used to work at the property and she saw so-and-so. You know, we at least get these stories which are questionable, but they at least claim something. This claim is extremely weak. He's hardly claiming anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
The priest dies in 27. The mom takes it over. And then in 1929, the hotel was closed to the public. In May 1929, a local group called the Isaac Walton League, which nobody knows what that is anymore, but they're a conservation group. They pushed to have the state buy the property for a state park. This fell through, and next it was proposed as a county park, which also failed. September 1930, the Steinbrechers could not keep up with mortgage payments and were foreclosed on by the First National Bank of Appleton. And then ultimately, the People's Savings and Trust Company of Appleton bought the property at auction for $13,000, which was less than half of what it was valued at. They, in turn, on either late 1932 or early 1933, sold it to the Cherney Construction Company, and Adolph Cherney, who was a prominent road and bridge builder, operated the site as a tavern. So I'll pause here for a moment.
So, like, he turned the hotel into a tavern?
Yeah.
I bet you that would be a pretty badass tavern.
Yeah. Going back to the Capone thing, this is where I have more concerns. We've stressed this before, or at least I've stressed this before. When you look at Al Capone and the timeline of Al Capone, there was a while where he was in Chicago and nobody really knew who he was. Then there was a time he got big. Then he went to prison. Then he got out of prison and he retired to Florida, and his mental health deteriorated because of syphilis.
Okay.
During the time he was big in Chicago, and everybody would have known who he was, and his face was in the paper all the time. So if you saw him, you'd be like, "You're Al Capone," or "You look like Al Capone." That is a narrow window in like the late 1920s.
Okay.
And what really bothers me is that this is conveniently around the same time that this place is going closed to the public and then is trying to be sold to the state and ends up getting foreclosed on and being sold off. Now, again, this other guy in the 80s is like, briefly while the mother's taking it over, there's some shady people there. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that during that window, there were shady people there. There were moonshiners, and the moonshiners had some kind of connection to Capone. I'm not saying it's not possible, but I am going to say the window of when Capone was active and the window of when the hotel was actually open, there's a very limited overlap there. Mm-hmm. Because half of the time Capone's active, this place is basically closed. Mm-hmm. So that makes it even a little more unlikely to me. Not impossible. And I'd love to actually get some kind of confirmation. The moonshiners and prostitutes. Granted, I mean, I threw this together in about a week. I didn't spend months researching this. But I didn't find any article referencing people, any contemporary references of people hanging out there, police raids on moonshiners. I didn't find anything like that at all.
Okay, so that was going to be one of my questions. You don't even find any sort of trail that would suggest that this rough time happened.
No.
At the Maribel Caves.
No.
Or at the Maribel Hotel, I guess.
The Maribel Hotel is, there's nothing, at least in the newspapers, that suggests anything criminal ever happened there. At all. Not even no Capone, nothing criminal. Which, I mean, I would actually be more shocked if there wasn't something criminal, because a hotel is going to have criminal things happen at it, regardless of who the owner is. That's how hotels work. People come and go out of hotels, and people do weird shit in their hotel room. That's how a hotel works. But there's no public instance that I'm aware of where people are actually getting in trouble there, or it has a reputation for having less than the best clientele going there. Again, this is what I put together in a week. If somebody spent months researching this, they could probably find something, but it wasn't immediately obvious to me.
All right. And you would think that if for per se chance, in that window of time when Al Capone is really big, I mean, if somebody did see Al Capone there, probably be a news article about it or something.
Could be.
Do you think?
Could be. I mean, I don't know about that. The thing with the Capone stories, and again, we've had Capone episodes before, so I'm probably repeating myself. The thing with the Capone stories is we know that he did go to the North Woods. It's not that it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And so inevitably, if you're going to travel from Chicago to the North Woods, yes, you are going to stop at a restaurant. Yes, you are going to stop and get gas. It's going to happen. So it's not that Capone didn't visit places in Wisconsin. He absolutely did. It would make no sense that he didn't. But yeah, a lot of it, it's not like every time he did that, they ran to the newspaper and you won't believe it. Al Capone got some gas. He had one of my hot dogs. No, it didn't. That wasn't like that.
So what you're suggesting by saying that is that basically maybe he did go to the Maribel Caves, but it was an overnight stay while he was on his way to the next place. Basically, this wasn't more than likely there would be some sort of evidence if this was a place he frequented on a regular basis.
I think so. Yeah, and I think that's generally the claim, is that he stayed there on his way up north, which is not impossible. It certainly could have happened. It makes some level of sense. I mean, if you go straight north from Chicago before curving over to, the middle of North Wisconsin, yeah, you could go past Manitowoc and Green Bay. That's very reasonable. Or if he was going up to Door County, because people like to go to Door County, that's a reasonable place to be. So I'm not saying it didn't happen, but it's not like he was known for it, or it was known for him being there.
And I just find it funny that, prior to you saying anything about the Maribel Caves or the Maribel Hotel, I'd never heard.
You'd not heard that one?
I had not heard that one. But that said, there are probably people out there that strongly believe that this actually happened. And in a week's worth of research, what you could find is somebody wrote an article in 1988 that suggests that Capone and Dillinger could have been there.
Yeah. Yeah. Long story short, what I think happened, this is my guess, is the building looks freaking cool.
Yeah.
And so people want to tell stories about this really cool building. People can look at, obviously I can't show you the picture because you can't see me, but you can look it up, like pictures of before the fire and the tornado. Like, it's a freaking castle. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a cool looking place. So yeah, people are going to tell stories about what goes on in this sweet castle. So that doesn't surprise me at all. And I think having the fire and the tornado probably only made more stories instead of, getting rid of them, because now you've got this, I don't even know what it looks like now. The last time I saw it, it was like a wall and part of a tower. Like, it wasn't even a lot still standing. It probably looks even worse now. Out
of curiosity, did you come across who owns this property now?
Currently, I did look it up, but I don't recall. It wasn't anybody notable.
But it's just an individual owns it.
Yes.
Because I'm just curious, like you said, it's a cool building.
Yeah.
Do something with it, Or sell it to somebody that's willing to do something with it. But maybe it's just one of those things where it's nowhere.
Yeah.
So, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
But
so from the 30s to the 60s, this Adolf Cherney guy owns it. Again, this guy is a big deal. Name means nothing to me, but this construction company was really big, like in the Manitowoc area. He's building stuff all over the place. In 1963, he sells off the cave property, 75 acres, to Manitowoc County for $16,000, and it becomes the first Manitowoc County park. The remaining property with the hotel, he keeps, and the family owns it until the 1970s. Following them, there's a few different owners. A man named Stanley Jerebeck owns it for a while. Then in 1976, it sold to Richard Wagner. Wagner, coincidentally, probably not coincidentally, probably on purpose, was a great-grandson of Charles Steinbrecher, the original proprietor of the place. Then Jeff Miller runs it from 1981. Finally, Bob Lyman, who is the Manitowoc County Historical Society president, purchases the property. This is the guy who wrote the article in the 80s. He purchases the property. He says at this point, it had gone through fires and vandalism, and he wanted to kind of save it from being completely demolished. He has passed on, so it has since been sold again. Yeah, it's gone through a few hands. So yeah, Bob Lyman writes that article when he's the owner, and I don't know him. Like I said, he's deceased, but I get the impression he kind of puffed it a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe he was trying to get some buzz around it to maybe see if he could do something with it. But the crazy part about it is whoever owns it, just at least sell it to Manitowoc County so that they can make that part of the park too.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's I don't know what to do.
So
now that's pretty much the end of the story as far as that goes. But there's a side part I want to talk about. You had kind of mentioned it at the beginning, and it's about the caves.
Okay.
This blows my mind. This to me was the most interesting part of this whole story. And everyone listening is going to be like, that's not interesting.
But, except for maybe me.
Okay. So you said you went to the caves and the excavator guy was there.
Yeah, somebody was there that worked on the caves, and he let us in and he took us on a tour into the caves.
So here's what is wild to me. At the caves, there's what's called the New Hope Cave. And the New Hope Cave is the largest cave in Manitowoc County, the largest known cave in Manitowoc County.
Okay.
It was discovered in February 1984. Blows my mind that this property is active for at least 100 years until they found this large cave. Now, from there, the Aqua Dulce Cave is discovered in 2003. by this like group that goes in with the caves. And it's a smaller crawling cave, but it goes back about 30 feet. Tunnel passage was discovered in 2005. It's about 20 feet long, 3 feet tall. Split Rock Cave was discovered in 2008. They were out there in the winter and they noticed steam coming out of some cracks. So they went in and kind of like wiped away some dirt, and they found this another cave, which was big enough where they could actually sit up in some domed areas inside of it. This is wild to me that like these caves have been here, I mean, forever, but people have been visiting them for a long time. And still, like in the last 20, 30 years, they're finding more caves.
I'm just wondering if it just took them that long to get people to actually go in there and, you know, look at like what is here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's weird because so like you said you were there and like the excavator guy was there, and I'm assuming this is this group that's going in. And
I would assume so, yeah.
And like that's wild. That's wild that like any day they could like announce, "Hey, guess what? We found another cave that goes down to here and here." Like the place is like not just a county park, a very nice county park. It's an active site.
Yeah, where they're actually still digging for this stuff. And what did you say? Like as late as 2003 was the last time they
2008 was the... Well, and it's probably more recent than that, but 2000, like the website that's run by this group, they're called the Wisconsin Speleological Society, which is not... I mean, I get it. Speleological, I'm sure, is like spelunking, like going in caves. But yeah, their website sort of drops off after 2008. I'm sure they're still active. They just, whoever does their website doesn't really maintain it.
Update anymore. So they've probably found more caves since then.
Yeah, but I'm just like, that is wild that they're finding, you know, to tell me like, oh, hey, here's another 30 feet of cave that we didn't know about. Like, what? Like, how is this not? Because people go in there every day. How do people not find this?
It seemed like they don't go in there every day.
No?
Yeah, like this almost seemed like it was, you know, like a couple days a week they're down there.
But I mean, like regular people could go in there.
Yeah, but you can't like really, if you don't remember, like all you can do is hike a certain distance and then they have it blocked off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can't.
They block it off?
Yeah. So like
Rude.
You can tell that there's caves because they'll leave like a little crawl space. But as soon as you start crawling down there, if you crawl like 20 feet, there'll be a cage door over the rest of the cave, so you can't go into the caves. Okay. That's why it was really unique the time we went there and the guy was there because that door was open.
And he's like, come on in.
And he took us into it.
And then it collapses and no one sees you again.
And I assume the one I went in was the first one you mentioned because this one, for the most part, we could walk standing up in it. So that must be that really big one. I forget what you said the name of it was.
New Hope Cave.
Yeah, that must have been the one we were in.
But yeah, so this story, it's not interesting in the crime sense of it being interesting because I found nothing. But it was interesting to me in the things I had not expected. Mm-hmm. Learning more about the caves was interesting to me because like the caves are cool themselves, but to know that this is still like an ongoing thing, that was really cool to find out. And obviously the Kaukauna connection, I always get excited about that.
Yeah. This almost would have been like the perfect episode for Fox Cities Murder and Mayhem. And maybe we should put this in the Fox Cities Murder and Mayhem feed.
Yeah, I had thought about that. I'm like, there's no murder or mayhem in this, but I'm like, it actually is kind of a Fox Cities episode in a way.
Yeah, so. I might actually do that if you're okay with that.
Oh, it's up to you. You're hosing the Patreon members out of this paid content if you put it on the public feed, but I'm not going to stop you.
They get more than enough original content for their $2 a month.
Yeah, that's fair. Sorry, Patreon members.
So I guess where we can end up with this is probably not a Capone hangout place.
Probably not. And again, I'll say it, it's like the third time, but I'll say it. If somebody can find an article or something where somebody makes a reference to the place being a Capone place, please let me know. Like, I legitimately would love to know more about how this rumor got around. Apparently Eric had not heard it, but it's something I have heard. And as near as I can tell, that didn't start till the 1980s, which is a little late for a rumor like that to get going around.
Yeah. You can't really take it serious once you find out it started.
When you talk about Capone like 40 years after he's dead, like, again, not saying it didn't happen, but your reliability drops.
And what is it, like 90 years after that place closed?
That was like 60 years. But it's it's enough where the guy who wrote it probably did not know firsthand anything.
And the direct quote that you read, I read that as he was using John Dillinger and Al Capone as examples of ruffians that could have been.
Yeah, he says reportedly, so he's kind of vague about it.
Yeah.
But he does say moonshiners and prostitutes, and I don't know what his source for that is. So, again, even that, I'd love to know. It'd be interesting, because even if it's not Dillinger or Capone, I mean, moonshiners and prostitutes, I'm all for that.
Yeah, where you're proving Gavin wrong, even if you can find like a crime that happened or some sort of disturbance at the hotel, if you can find some report of that.
Yeah, but the place seemed pretty clean. The owners are all reputable people. I mean, the one guy being a very popular priest, I mean, you know, not that priests can't be bad people too, but
not priests from Kaukauna.
Not priests from Kaukauna. So he was, like when he was like an owner, he wasn't letting terrible things happen there. Like, so I don't know.
Oh, I had one other question. Is this spring still there? Do you know?
I assume
that
when the guy bought it in the 80s, the hotel was there and the bottling works was still there. So I assume that the spring is, I mean, I guess the spring could just dry up, but I assume it's still there somewhere.
You would think it would still be there because, man, I mean, if they were bottling and shipping water out, this spring must have been able to produce a massive amount of water for them.
Yeah.
You know?
But it wouldn't have the draw that it used to have.
What do you mean the draw?
Well, because you used to want that water because, like, man, this water's really good. And now it'd be like, okay.
Yeah, but it would just be kind of neat to be like, oh, there's a spring, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, that was a big thing in Waukesha. Like, Waukesha had the water, like, they were known for their water. And even when they started, like, making beer there, they made the beer using that water because it was considered such good water. Mm-hmm. And now, you know, obviously, I'm not from Waukesha. Maybe people in Waukesha still get really excited about the water, but I don't think they're known for that anymore. Mm-hmm. So,
well, I'd be more than likely because at this point we just pour so many chemicals into our water to make sure it's clean that I mean, is there special water anymore, or is it all just water?
Well, there's mineral water.
Yeah,
I mean, you can get stuff that apparently comes from the finest springs and mineral water from
Switzerland or whatever. Yeah.
It's still a thing. It's just, I don't think we think of it the way it used to be.
Yeah. So, all right. With that, we'll wrap this episode up. We want to thank everybody for their continued support of the Patreon, and we will be back next week with a regular Mafia episode, in 2 weeks with another Patreon. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Fox City's Murder and Mayhem. Join us in 2 weeks for another exciting episode of Murder and Mayhem.